Mark your calendars for the Hawkeye Wrestling Club Showdown Open. It's November 1st, Sunday night in Coralville, Iowa. Will not be live with fans, but we'll have it right here on Trackwrestling.com. Fired up for this event, and a pleasure to be joined right now by Alex Marinelli, University of Iowa. He's got the Yankee hat on, says he's not a Yankee fan, just likes the hats, but a two-time Big Ten champion, multiple-time All-American. Alex, first question for you is, how did you get the nickname The Bull?
Yeah, so a lot of people ask me that question, and I just, reference a time when I was at my high school coach's camps, and I did a lot of his camps growing up, and I was probably like 6 or 7 years old, and I did a club practice one night, and I just double-legged some guy, and he's like, "That's the Raging Bull," and then he's like, "That's crazy," because I matured early, and I was running people over, and he's like, it just stuck, and I honestly hear Bull more than my own first name, and it's just what people have been calling me, and it stuck. So
you got to be chomping at the bit for some competition. You'll wrestle James Green, a world medalist. I'm looking forward to this matchup. What were your initial thoughts when you heard it was going to be James Green in the opposite corner, and what has you most excited about this challenge?
Yeah, when Tom told me who it was and who it could be, I was just excited to go out and wrestle anyone, to be honest. I didn't care if it was Jordan Burroughs, Sidikov. I didn't care if it was James Green or who it was. I really didn't care. I just wanted to go out and wrestle and get some experience. And then also when he said it was James Green, I was like, sweet, like let's get some good freestyle workouts in and really prepare and train for this guy. And he's a world-class wrestler, so it's awesome, and it's a privilege to be wrestling in it,
What impresses you most when you watch James Green? Because he's explosive, athletic, powerful. I mean, he's slick, obviously experienced. It'll be a lot of fun to wrestle a guy of his caliber.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, not to talk up my opponent, but I mean, it's just when you watch him, you watch for the little things that he does, and I mean, it's just the explosiveness, like you're saying. He's got the double leg, and he's just he transitions to like a gut, like a tight waist. I mean, it's just. He's just savvy, and those he's experienced, and he's a veteran, and he knows how to win. And I just got to be ready. I got to be on my toes and blowing my stance. And I'm just I've watched a lot of film on him. Let's just say that. So,
how much freestyle wrestling have you done, Alex, through the years?
Growing up, none. I never did freestyle until college, and then when I got to college, I kind of went right into it and wrestled at the Open in Vegas and did pretty well, made it to the finals and wrestled Mark Hall, and then ended up losing. But the thing about freestyle and folk style, I mean, it's pretty similar, but Tom Brands is very good at simplifying things and making it so I'm not getting frustrated because I haven't done it for so long. I haven't done it growing up, but that doesn't mean I can't get better at it within this time that we're training. And he's very good at coaching and relating it to folk style and just being aware of the positions, just being aware of what could happen if you rest, and if you leave your arms behind, he could trap arm you, whatever. And so, I mean, I haven't done much freestyle, but that doesn't matter. I mean, I can get better. I'm ready,
That is interesting because you look at the top guys in the country coming out of high school. Most of those guys have a freestyle background. Why did you not wrestle freestyle growing up?
Well, I Coach Jordan, Jeff Jordan, coached at Graham High School. He had his camps all summer, and so I did camps. I like to say like 11 or 12 weeks out of the summer, and I was there every single week, counseling, making sure, just working for his camps, and then all kids around the country would come. And we'd wrestle live every night, and we'd grind, and we were just getting better. So it wasn't like I was like, and I didn't really have time to train freestyle either. I mean, I was focused on counseling and just learning folk style, and then also just training with these guys. I mean, we'd bring in everyone around the country to these camps. I mean, you talk Jordan Cutler, Colin Moore, all those guys, and then back in the day it was Logan Stever, Hunter Stever, Tony Ramos, McDonough. Anyone came to these camps that I remember training with, and it was a good room, and I didn't really need to venture out and go to these freestyle tournaments. It just wasn't needed. Maybe I could have, maybe it may have been good for me, but I mean, I don't regret anything I did. So
When you think back to those days, because I've heard some stories, Jeff Mochik is the head coach at Kaukauna High School here in Wisconsin, and they go to the Jordan camps all the time. And he's told me a couple of times about watching you. I think it might have been Bo Bresky was the specific example he used, years back. But when you think back to those times at those camps in the summertime, who do you remember some of the best battles being with?
I mean, to be honest, that's a good one. Baby J was one of them. Obviously, I may have been a little bit bigger than him, but when I went with Bo Bresky, I mean, he had double overs on me and I was defending it, and it was a big flurry. And then also with Colin Moore would also counsel too. And so we were going at it when he was relatively the same weight as me, but now he's a little bit bigger. But I just remember going with him, and then I don't know, and the Graham guys, you go with Micah Jordan every night, and then Bo Jordan, and it was just a great room. I mean, there was national champs, state champs all over the place. It was one of the best rooms in the country to go to, and that's why all the kids around the country would go to it. So,
remember interviewing you that first weekend in March, Big Ten championships at Rutgers, winning your second Big Ten title. Little did we know what lied ahead with this pandemic. When you reflect, Alex, on these past 6 months, what have you taken away from the time period? What's been most valuable for you?
I think the biggest thing I've taken away, and Tom tells us every single day, and Terry has told us today, control what you can control and control your mind, and you'll be all right. I mean, if something goes crazy, that doesn't mean you go crazy. That doesn't mean you go off the path that you're on. And maybe if something happens to you, you slide over a little bit and you reassess, and then you keep going. You go the same route, and you have that same mentality. And I think Terry preached on it today. It's like if you have a death in the family, that doesn't mean you stop training for that family member that died. It's just that family member would want you to keep training. And that's the same thing with this COVID. It's like we have this whole pandemic going on, but that doesn't mean we shut down and say, oh my gosh, like I can't train. I can't work out. I can't do push-ups and pull-ups on my own. Like, no, like it shouldn't change how you perceive things. And it just, that's probably the main thing I've taken away from all this stuff. So.
Have you learned anything about yourself in the last 6 months in general?
Yeah. I mean, when wrestling's taken away like it was, what you're meaning, and a lot of, and it's a lot of where I place my faith. I have God. So if wrestling's taken away, I mean, God will never be taken away. He predicted, he knew this stuff was going to happen. He's testing our faith, and he'll never leave us nor forsake us. So that means that if wrestling goes away, I'm still strong. I still have that hope and that reassurance that, I'll spend eternity with him in heaven. And even if I get COVID and die tomorrow or die today, like I win eternally. I win because I'll be with him in heaven. So that's kind of my outlook. And I'm just reminded, I knew that perspective, and I had that in the past, but with this whole stuff going on, that's just, it reminds me to stay close to him and build that relationship with him. Cause I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's just things get taken away so fast, you never know what's going to happen. So
big night, November 1st, Hawkeye Wrestling Club Showdown Open, talking with Alex Marinelli. He'll wrestle James Green. Bull, when you look at college wrestling these past few years, be hard-pressed to find a rivalry that brings the intensity and the anticipation of you and Vincenzo Joseph at Penn State. You guys have had some epic battles. What do you appreciate most about that rivalry?
I just appreciate that he brings it every time, he's always consistent at bringing it. He's a competitor, and I also just like wrestling good wrestlers, and it's exciting. It gets me amped up, and I'm never afraid for a challenge. And that's one thing that my teammates feed off of. And when you go out there and you have no fear, you go out there and wrestle to your best ability. It's like, Kemmer sees that, and he's like, I want to go out there and wrestle with no fear. And or Spencer or Caleb Young or anyone's like, wow, Marinelli doesn't care if it's Vincenzo Joseph. Like it just doesn't matter. You still go out there and hit a single leg, or you hit your double legs or whatever. It's but Vincenzo Joseph, he's talented and he's a great competitor, and it's awesome to just have that rivalry. It's pretty cool. So
when did you develop that kind of mentality? To me, I think it's the most fascinating thing is how some guys just see a wrestler. They don't see a ranking. They don't see a singlet. They just go out and let it fly. Hey, have you always been like that, or what are some different things that you've done to train your mind to think like that?
I think growing up, I've always been like I've been very competitive ever since I started sports. I've always wanted to win. I took winning very seriously and sports very seriously. So when it came to wrestling in college, I mean, Terry and Tom expects you to win. I mean, you have an expectation at Iowa to win. And then when you put on that black and gold, and the same thing for when I was in high school, that was our team rules. I mean, number one, create an experience or an entertaining wrestling vibe around you and make people want to watch you wrestle. And that's just my goal. Every single time I step on the mat, I expect to win. And that's just the mentality I've gotten and I've improved because of Tom and Terry. I mean, Terry's been preaching on mental toughness. I mean, ever since I got to college. So I think since I was little, but it's also just evolved and gotten so much better. So
is there anything specifically like just a real specific laser message that really is embedded between your ears?
Yeah. I would say Jesus trained. Obviously, I wear that Jesus trained shirt all the time before every match. And that's kind of like a word that Terry preaches to us, is like, what's your identity statement? What's your identity statement that you can focus on that propels you to your goals, and your process goals and all that stuff? What's that identity statement? And then also child of God. If I'm a child of God, I don't need to compete with fear. I can compete fearless. And that's just the things like Jesus trained. Jesus trained my mind, and I have the spirit in me. That same spirit that rose God or Jesus from the grave, is in me. So.
Want to ask you one more question about Joseph, because I've been fortunate enough, on the broadcasting side of things, I'll talk to you, I'll talk to Joseph. I kind of talk to everybody. Mm-hmm. And it always makes me kind of chuckle a little bit, because you guys are all very similar. And I'm thinking, mm-hmm. Man, I don't know if these people have any kind of relationships or if they talk, but if they did, they'd probably be pretty good friends, because they got a lot of those same core values. Do you have any kind mm-hmm. of a relationship with Vincenzo? You guys ever talk?
I don't think we ever have, and that's funny that you say that, because like I don't understand, like I understand like rivalries, and I understand like beating other teams, and I understand that, but when it comes down to it, we're both, I mean, if he's a brother in Christ, if he's a believer, then he's a brother in Christ to me, and then we're all one big family. So I mean, obviously I want to beat him, and he's another guy on that mat that shakes hands with me, so I'm going to do whatever to run through him. I'm not going to treat him like a friend on that mat, but when we're off the mat, I mean, obviously I'll respect him, and I'll respect him as a competitor. But I've talked to a couple of my competitors, but I agree that like we all have that same goal in mind, and we probably think relatively similar, but maybe our lifestyles are a little different. But it's just sharing that competitiveness is pretty cool. So that's just one thing about wrestling. It's one guy and against another, and it's pretty cool. So.
Looking ahead, maybe 25, 30 years down the road, you and him are having a conversation. What would be a couple of questions that you would ask him regarding the rivalry you guys had?
I don't know. Didn't you hate wrestling me? Didn't you hate my hand fighting? I don't know. Like just funny things like, what'd you think about that situation? You got lucky at Carver. Just funny stuff. Obviously, you got lucky that I was out of position and I beat myself. It's just funny things like that, but also just, giving them credit because they were national champions and they were returning. It's just, I mean, we wanted to do that this year and we didn't get it done. And I would have just been like, you know what? You're lucky 2020 didn't happen. It's just, I don't know. Funny stuff. And I'm being funny, but it's honestly like in 20 years down the road, it's not going to be anything hard feelings or anything. I mean, I think if we talk, it's just respect, so.
When you look at this whole COVID deal, and obviously you have a great perspective through life experiences, but what was the hardest pill to swallow with that whole situation?
It's like you just have no power. And I think like you have no control of the situation and you have to give it up and respect the decision that they've made. And, that's hard. Like, it's with anything in life. If you have no control of it over that, control what your mind can think, control like what you can do next. I mean, that's the hardest thing. And it is really hard to move on. It's hard. It is. I mean, you want to talk about it and you want to just be like, get me out of here for a little bit, but you also have to be there for your teammates. So if I would say it's easy to move on and be like, oh, I mean, we got next year, that'd be just a lie. I mean, obviously it was hard. That was really hard to just to agree, not agree with it, just accept it, accept that like it's not going to happen anymore. And then same for like Lugo. I mean, Lugo, it's just, and Spencer Lee. I mean, the guy that my friends that were striving for greatness were Big Ten champs and they had goals in mind, and Spencer Lee could be the biggest legend at Iowa. And it's just, it sucks. I mean, but we things are in the process, and we're looking forward to competing again. So.
How did you get involved in wrestling? How old were you? How you get involved?
I think I was 4 years old. My parents took me to wrestling practice because my friend from my hometown, Miamisburg, Ohio, we had a good little kids program, and my dad was coaching me, and my friend's dad. I grew up wrestling with him and then just playing baseball and football. But my parents, I think it's just something to do. I think it's just like this kid's aggressive, so and he's built more than maybe other 4-year-olds or 5. I don't know. Like I was just probably just a little different. Like I was just wanting to play all these sports and do all these things. But I just, I remember the gym it was in. I remember, the school, like it was at it was a 6th grade, like a junior high school or whatever gym. And I just remember all the mats that we had to roll up every time. And I was little. So, but yeah, it was fun. So.
Were you a wrestling fan, like a college wrestling fan when you were growing up?
Not as much as a football fan. I mean, obviously I looked at Iowa. So like when I would go to like Tulsa, when I was getting really like better, I'd go to like Tulsa and they have like all those clothes like on the stand or like the merchandise and all this stuff. And I'd be like, oh, Dad, give me that Iowa look. Cause it's like, that's what everyone's wearing and that they're the best back then. So I was like wanting to wear that, and I was a fan, and I knew like a couple names, but honestly, like I thought I was going to go play college football because I was bigger. Like I was 5'9" and 160 at like in sixth grade. Like I was in 8th grade, I went 164. So that's just, I've been the same size, but and then I stopped growing. So I was like, okay, football is not my thing. So I would have been definitely like a linebacker.
What linebacker. Okay. And college football wise, I'm guessing Ohio State was
I was a big Ohio State fan. Obviously, they're Jim Tressel and like Troy Smith and all them, like sure. AJ Hawk grew up 15 minutes from me. So I was like a huge fan of him. So, and Mike Nugent was, he kicked for Ohio State, so 15 minutes for me. So
okay,
I was like a huge Ohio State football fan, but then like never really went to like any Ohio State wrestling dual meets or anything. So
did you have a favorite, college wrestler when you were in high school?
Probably Metcalf. Obviously, like he graduated. I mean, I graduated high school in 2016, so he was a little bit. He probably would have been around then. But I remember just hanging out with Mike Evans on my visits and stuff. I just liked his charisma and just his like attitude towards wrestling. And then obviously Ramos and all those guys. I mean Gilman and stuff. So I had some favorites, but yeah, I just focused on just high school wrestling in general. So
what was it like being recruited coming out of high school? What was that experience like?
That was a good experience. I mean, Tom and Terry and Morningstar, left it really up to me and didn't really pressure me too much. And it was a good experience then. But, I had a lot of pressure wanting from my family, wanting me to go to Ohio State. And I've told that story before, but ultimately made the decision for myself to go to Iowa and I mean, I'm blessed and this is my dream and I'm living it. So I'm really excited that, I ended up at Iowa. So
where did you go on visits?
I just went to Ohio State and Iowa. So
really? Okay.
I didn't venture out too much. Got recruited pretty early, with the rules and stuff. They had we didn't break any rules, but at the same time, it's like, I knew there was those two. So really Iowa, but my parents and my family just really kind of wanted me to like keep contacting Ohio State, and it's just like really I was an Iowa guy, and everyone knew it. So,
Do you remember? Was there anything that was said during those recruiting visits when you knew? Like, maybe was there anything specific when it was like, all right, this just confirms I'm going to Iowa City?
I'd say, I mean, just the way like Tom approached like a conversation and just like what he talked about, and Terry, like, you know, if you text Terry, like he's really to the point, and just like one time he texted me and was like, do you want to be the best? And I didn't have his number saved at the time. Like, and Terry's like, he said, do you want to be the best you can be? And I was like, who is this? And I knew it was an Iowa City number because it was 319. And he's like, you know who it is. And then he said TV, and I didn't know which one it was. And then I was like, of course I do. And then he's like, come to Iowa City or something like that. And I was like, all right, like this is like, I'm like, I got to make it happen. Like we're going to Iowa. So just little things that like, they're genuine people. They love their wrestlers. They will never give up on them, no matter how much the wrestler like strays. They're always going to be in their ear, just talking to them with encouragement and just putting them on the right path. I mean, it's just how they are. They're good people. A lot of people have a the outlook on Tom and Terry is crazy, and maybe they're crazy about wrestling. That's just what you are. You're crazy about what you love, and you're crazy about winning, and that's what they are. I mean, they're fanatics. I always tell people, I'm like wrestling for Tom and Terry's, it's special because they're fanatics about wrestling. They think about wrestling like right now, like how I'm sitting, like they just like they relate it to wrestling. They're like, don't sit, don't slouch. Like you want to have the best posture, like your neck, everything, like your knees bent when you're walking, like anything, you know? So
good stuff.
Yeah.
And it's been a great decision for you. You look at the success that you've had inside Carver Hawkeye. I mean, you have just been phenomenal inside that building. Are there 2 or 3 matches that stand out when you look at your first 3 years wrestling in that black singlet in front of that crowd in that arena?
I'd say definitely the Wick match. I mean, that was a big weekend for me because my in-laws came and they had that documentary going on and beating him. And it was early in the season too, and the whole team kicked butt. So that was pretty cool. And then maybe I mean, obviously, Vincenzo was a heartbreaker, but that Penn State dual meet was awesome. I got to back up my teammates. I mean, that Kemmer did awesome. I don't, you know, I took a loss, my first loss in Carver, but that I don't care. Like that just, I mean, that performance was awesome, and that dual meet was cool. And then also Oklahoma State, you know, those dual meets are so cool. So,
give me the story behind the Drago music when you take the mat.
I don't know. I maybe because a lot of my like music and my walkout song like ideas come from like Paul Glenn or like Kemmer or like people that like we're driving in the car and we're like visualizing, we're like, oh, this would be sweet, like I'm gonna do this. And then but I think I just like Rocky IV. I mean, that's who doesn't, you know, it's awesome. Sure. And when Drago comes out, it's like he looks like a freaking monster. Like his legs are huge. And I mean, obviously he's the Russian, but I mean, it's just soundtrack. So it's cool. I mean, either way. So it's cool.
I remember hearing that the first time. I believe it was you guys in Iowa State. That was your sophomore year. That was the first time I had heard it. Did you have that as a freshman also?
No, actually I had a song called Lions by Chase Rice. So he says the Lord's Prayer at the beginning of the song, and then it goes into like a song. And I thought that was really cool. You know, I loved it because I'm big in my faith, but at the same time, it was really cool. So if you ever want to look up a song that'll pump you up, Lions, that's what it's called. And then by Chase Rice. So it's not like a country song or anything. That's just what it is. But and then I switched it, and then it was cool because a lot of people texted me after like they heard the Drago interest. They're like, that's so gangster, like that's sweet. And I'm like, thanks, man. Like, you know, but
are you going to stick with it?
Yeah, I'll stick with it. I always think of changing it up. Like, I'm like, man, I need to like walk out to this year. Cause like, I don't know, it's the last, or it's like, could be my last year, you know, something like that. But, I always think of like coming out to like Andy Mineo. I don't know if you know who that is, but he's a Christian artist,
Okay.
rapper. So I listen to a lot of him, but I'll probably stick with Drago. You can't change it up. It's going good. So
Track Wrestling, talking with Alex Marinelli, University of Iowa. Big event coming up on November 1st. Looking forward to that. That'll be streamed right here on trackwrestling.com. Alex, it's hard to believe that you're coming to the end of the ride, at least in that Hawkeye singlet. What are you most fired up when you look at this upcoming season?
I'm fired up just kicking butt. I mean, I miss putting on the singlet and making guys look like fools out there. I mean, and fans loving it. Like they just love you getting takedowns and shoving their head in the mat, and then they lift their arm up and you throw a cement job in. It's awesome. Like I just love that feeling, and then I also just love being with my brothers. Like there's nothing like, I mean, honestly, away duels are fun too, like almost more fun. Competing at Carver's, there's nothing like it. But then when you go on a road trip with your friends and your brothers, you spend so much time with them, and then you get to like be in the bus or like on a plane ride, or like it's like vacation. You go on vacation with your buddies, and then you go wrestle a match and in front of fans. There's nothing like it. It's a dream. So
at Iowa, wrestling super important, obviously. You guys are rock stars. You get recognized around campus quite a bit?
Yeah. I mean, Spencer Lee more than anyone. You can't miss him. He's
pretty good.
He's
pretty good.
Yeah, he's all right. He's all right. I mean, he's okay. Like tech falls in like the first period, it's okay. But yeah, I get every now and then you go into a store and they say, "Hey, what's up?" You go into like an Iowa apparel store or whatever. I mean, and that's what's awesome. Like a lot of the restaurant owners, they treat us real nice. Like they'll be super quick with service, and obviously they'll say hi to us and have conversations with us. And I mean, it's just a good town. Like they just love wrestling, and they love that we're passionate about it and we're competitors, honestly. Like they just love the toughness, and that's just what makes this city great. There's no pro sports in Iowa, so you gotta root for something, and when you're rooting for a winning team, it's fun.
What are your plans after school?
Definitely wrestle in the HWC, talk with Tom and get a game plan going with training. And then after, I definitely want to coach. I definitely want to coach Division I and get coaching, but I have some competing and goals in mind, and I want to accomplish making an Olympic team and chasing for that gold medal. So I have a lot of growing to do, and that's what Tom reminds me every day is like, you're not even at your best. Like you have so much more to give. Like you have so much more to learn and improve on. And that's what's awesome about it is, I could train what 2 years could do. Like it's just amazing what 2 years of freestyle wrestling and training could do for me is just amazing.
Halloween coming up in a few weeks. Do you remember what you were the first Halloween trick-or-treating?
I remember I saw a picture when I was real young. We always had it up. My brother and I were like firefighters or something. I always wanted to be one. My dad was one. So,
okay.
So yeah, firefighter. I mean, I don't know. I just loved, like, I'm a big candy guy, so I got a sweet tooth. All my buddies know, like, I got to keep it down. And Tom's always like, moderation is key. You be smart. So don't eat it if you can't control yourself. So I try not to even start. So
that was my next question for you. I mean, I got Reese's peanut butter cups and Kit Kats in the
those
freezer.
are my favorite right there.
Is that what you go with? I mean, those are hard to beat.
So growing up, like I would go to church, and then my mom or like my aunts would like bring me home, and on the way home from church, I'd literally cry if they wouldn't stop at the gas station to like I was like 4 or 5, and like that's where the addiction started. So sugar is very highly addictive, and so if you want to get off of it, you got to go cold turkey. You can't be moderation because it won't work. So
you got any other I don't know if I'd go as far as say bad habits, but we'll call them indulgences. You drink soda, stuff like that?
Never soda, but I don't think it's a bad habit, but I drink a lot of like carbonated water. Like it's just a habit of mine.
Sure.
Like I crave it, and a lot of my teammates, they crave it. So it's funny because I was talking to like a football player, and we were hanging out one day, and I said, "Hey, I got to go to Hy-Vee for some drinks." And he was thinking for some drinks, like some liquid courage or something. I was like, no, I was like, I came out with some carbonated water. He's like, man, you guys are different breeds. Like, that's just what we crave. I don't know. When you get done with a hard workout, I think a lot of wrestlers would agree. But other than that, I mean, play some video games every now and then, but it's never a problem. So
how's married life treating you?
It's great. My wife's awesome. I try to not make her my mom too much, and I try to keep up on the laundry and the cooking and the cleaning. I just grilled tonight, so kind of took some weight off her, but she's awesome. I mean, Mariah's the best ever, and a lot of people can agree with that. But having her as my wife is it's a blessing. So she's awesome.
You mentioned the restaurants before. I love going to Iowa City. I mean, you can't help but love it. I live in Wisconsin. I go over that bridge, and it says, Iowa welcomes you, and I could just feel like the wrestling take over my body. I mean, I just love wrestling wherever it is. But speaking about the restaurants, give me your 2 or 3 favorite restaurants in Iowa City.
Yep, Dandelion breakfast joint. No sponsors, so don't NCAA don't get me in trouble. So Dandelion, obviously, the OG back in the day, freshman and sophomore year, we used to go to Bluebird a lot. But this whole COVID stuff kind of shut a lot of restaurants down. But Bluebird, Dandelion, obviously, you got Chop House for steak and stuff. But a lot of our I just like anything. I mean, honestly, Iowa City's where it's at. They got all kinds of food and stuff. So you got Wig and Penn and all that stuff. So. Oh,
that's a great place.
I mean, it's all good.
Yeah, that Joe's Place too. That's got all the old school wrestling posters. The only thing about Joe's Place is they got to update it. They got to update it.
Yeah, I don't go to too many bars, but I think definitely. I mean, we got some unique like sports column and stuff. It's just pretty cool. Like the vibe. It's old school. So if you want to update it, we got to do like a couple old school things, So.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Alex, thank you so much. Really appreciate the time. And always good to catch up with you, and really looking forward to seeing you back on the mat November 1st. Should be a lot of fun. We'll have it right here on trackwrestling.com. Be well, and we'll see you there in Coralville on Sunday, November 1st.
Awesome. Thanks, Shane.